My father loved buildings, more so than he loved people, I think. I came to Istanbul because of him. It was a necessary journey, or so I kept telling myself. Don't we all tell ourselves stories just to go on living? Father was a tenured professor of philology, but his dream had always been to become an architect. He even wrote a book about fabulous constructions that appear in the works from Mövenpick, Italo Calvino, Gene Wolfe, Mark Danielewski. At the time of his departure, we had not spoken for over 3 years. In one of our more heated quarrels, I accused him that the sole reason of him wanting a child was to see his dream fulfilled. He said nothing. I don't think he ever stopped loving me. It was only that he found my unwillingness to follow the plan he set out for me disconcerting, especially since I had always shared in his fascinations. I decided to plot his itinerary and film it. That way, I would maybe see what he saw, and maybe begin to understand. As soon as I arrived, I took to the streets, alone, as he once did. He asked me what I hoped to discover in Istanbul. He wrote to a friend from Debrecen on the eve of his departure. Well, I suppose I'm looking for something I cannot seem to find. He never said what exactly. He was indeed looking for something. Jokingly, when my mum asked where the idea of the trip came from, he said he wanted to see the city ruled over by cats. He loved cats, not as much as he loved buildings, but far more than he loved people. The perfect beings, that's what he called them. Growing old, I find myself contemplating with much interest things considerably older than me, he wrote to Mum. I find them appalling, but fascinating in their stubbornness. They are insults addressed to time itself. He wrote this after seeing the Egyptian obelisk brought by Theodosius I to adorn the hippodrome. Remnants of civilizations past still haunt the present, still haunt us. So is this what he was searching for? Remnants of a past beyond the past? But he had plenty of these at home. His antique books, his ammonite collection. Every particle of this world is in itself as old as time. This couldn't be it. Istanbul is built upon itself, he wrote to one of his former students. Layers upon layers, each building transforming itself, building and collapsing upon itself. The finished project dies instantly. Only drafts live on forever. Hagia Sophia is miraculous, he wrote to Mom, who at the time was coordinating a new translation of Rilke's elegies. It is a temple that honors the very idea of building. Its main structural innovation, the dome supported on 4 archways, remains as breathtaking now as it was in the time of Justinian I. This dome collapsed several times and was rebuilt. In spite of this, it remains the same. Even though buttresses were added to help keep it upright, it stays true to itself no matter what. Unlike us, who change our minds in an instant. He often told me stories about Hagia Sophia. I remember seeing photos of the weird Rorschach-like slabs of marble adorning its interior walls, and the geometric shapes of the ground slabs. Byzantium emperors stood on one of these slabs as they were crowned. Geometry, he wrote to a colleague. This is the core of the issue. It's all in the forms. If you manage to read the forms correctly, then all will certainly be revealed. Since arriving in Istanbul, I went inside every mosque I came across, just to experience those magical shapes. Islamic art, he wrote, gets to the gist of the matter. Figuration always implies hubris, even when it reportedly tries to warn against it. The natural forms signify something greater, nature itself. They are the language of time itself. Of course, time has its watchful guardians. It was in the Blue Mosque that he noticed that some of the slabs of marble were filled with fossils. For hundreds of years, people have been stepping on the long-lost shadows of these sea creatures. Millions of years brushed over by soft feet. This is time manifested. The friend to whom he wrote this long email said it was odd to get something from my father. They hadn't spoken in decades. As I am filming this, I see that some of the archway's keystones are also filled with fossils. How could he have missed this? In one of his unsent drafts, he wrote of another mosque, one where the Sultan Suleiman had brought a couple of fragments from the black stone of Kaaba in Mecca. He sat there in quiet contemplation of these stones, which are said to have fallen from heaven. Fragments from a once larger cosmic object, created billions of years ago by tremendous forces that had been traveling through the cosmos for millions of years, only to end up here in pieces. It is not only a problem of time, he wrote, but of space too. Maybe this draft had been intended for me. This line of thought is resumed in another email, this time to his former supervisor, dead for some 10 or so years. The bazaar is a microcosm, he wrote. The constant passing of people is akin to the way matter continually flows and transforms. But traversing it, one becomes painfully aware of one's own limitations. I suddenly saw myself for what I was, not the clever and objective observer, but a mere speck of dust.
Merhaba, Reşiyan. Abicim Maraş dondurma.
In his last email from Istanbul, he recounts a visit to a cemetery up a hill. No philosophical observations or meanderings, just a simple record of him perspiring profusely while ascending, and a long description of him sitting on a ledge and petting the local cats, some of them sleeping on the gravestones. The locals call it Hüzün, a kind of melancholy specific to Istanbul. It is the longing for some great and untouchable past, or maybe for a future that will never come. A failure of presence, a failure of absence too. I suppose this is what I feel too. After the email, he disappeared off the face of the earth. Officially, he is still reported missing, because his body was never found. I thought that my coming here might mean something. Instead, I am as confused as I started, maybe even more so. What am I left with from my so-called investigation? Almost nothing. A few images. If I show them on their own, they would say nothing of me or of my father, and maybe that's the point of it all. There are no substitutes for experience, no shortcuts. My God, I'm beginning to sound like him. While I'm writing this, here on the pier, a cat is grinding on my leg and purring. Instead of thinking he jumped into the Bosphorus, I could easily imagine he just turned into one of these cats he loved so much, and maybe thus found a bit of the solace he so wanted.